So why fiber growing containers? You know, our industry is largely dominated by plastic. And, you know, when I was a grower, we used plastic. We may have done a little bit of cocoa or fiber or moss basket type materials, but plastic dominates our industry. But the sad reality is that very few plastics are recycled in today's world. You know, 9% of plastics have ever been recycled, statistically speaking. Most of them are found in landfills, and worse yet, part of them are still being incinerated, which you know, helps contribute or negatively impact ozone and the greenhouse effect. And a lot of municipalities don't allow for plastic flower pots or containers to be recycled in their municipal recycling services. Where we live in the Athens, Georgia area, we're fortunate that we can recycle our plastic flower pots in the municipal recycling services offered. So fiber containers, like I said before, start out with water and paper products. So it's a huge vat, water gets mixed in with paper, and it's mixed up like a batch of cookies, but a really runny batch of cookies. There's a few other key ingredients that are added into it to help with stability, to help with pH adjustment. You know, it's got to be just right, kind of like the baking soda, kind of like the cornstarch that we use in some of our cooking practices, but paper products and water are the two main ingredients. So the way the molding process works is it starts with the slurry. We've got a series of screen-based molds that get dumped into this slurry. A vacuum negative pressure is applied to these molds, and the pulp literally gets sucked up to these brass molds, which then come out of the slurry, and they get dropped onto a big pizza oven type belt, and it goes through a heating oven to dry down the moisture content. Once they come off the end of the oven belt, they're able to be handled and packaged and prepared for shipment or put into the warehouse for storage for future orders. So back to EcoGrow. You know, why EcoGrow today? I think EcoGrow provides a unique opportunity to do a couple things. You know, whereas fiber grow containers are kind of chunky and thick-walled, maybe think of it as a thick-walled container, very durable, round pots, square pots, bowls, planters, in the fiber grow series have been around for close to 30 years. You can still find those products in our offering. We still sell a lot of them today. EcoGrow is this new thinner walled technology that was really designed around the needs of today's grower and today's retailer and some of the needs that today's consumers are looking for in a sustainable container alternative to plastic. So we have two primary lines of EcoGrow. We've got EcoGrow Standard, which is not organic certified, has the binding agent for strength. We manufacture EcoGrow out of post-industrial recycled newsprint. So this is printed paper, it's Sunday ads, it's black ink, it's colored ink. It's whatever you could expect to find in a Sunday ad or a Sunday newspaper when you bring it in to read it. You take that when you're done, we'll take that and we'll put it into our slurry to make EcoGrow pots. We do add a small amount of fungicide to this slurry to try to limit the mold growth that can sometimes persist with natural and sustainable, you know, alternatives available to us in the greenhouse. I kind of liken it to saprophytic mold that we sometimes find on the top of our pots as we're growing. And because of that, we can't claim that EcoGrow is compostable because the composting guidelines state that any non-allowed material cannot be used in a compost pile. Organic EcoGrow really comes into the growers that are organic certified. I get asked a lot, why do you have two lines of EcoGrow? Well, organic EcoGrow is made from post-industrial, unprinted new stock. So the NOP for organic certification and allowable materials does not allow for colored ink. It does not allow for glossy material or glossy paper to be used. So it's a really, really fine blend that we put together, and we're very particular about the new stock that we use. So to make it easy, we go unprinted, we go no glossy, So it's a totally different blend that's catered to the organic grower. What about fiber? You know, it breathes like clay. One of the biggest things that I've noticed through all my work on working with fiber grow and EcoGrow over the years is it's really after that initial plant. When we plant in plastic containers in a peat-based media, we get kind of that muck factor, I call it, when you water the plants in, where it's really super hydrated and it kind of sits for a while. The EcoGrow, one of the first things I noticed, and you know, very profound with the EcoGrow, is there is no muck factor very shortly after, you know, after the plants are planted and the plants are watered in. EcoGrow can be planted, fiber grow cannot. You can plop the EcoGrow container right in the ground, and it provides for a zero waste solution. So nothing to go into the compost pile, the compost bin, the recycling bin, or the garbage, nothing going to the landfill. And they're automation friendly. You know, we kept in mind what growers' needs are today when designing it. So all of our EcoGrow growing containers are developed around a tray that we offer in our portfolio, so they can be loaded into a shuttle tray and run through a flat filler, just like a normal plastic pot. And we do offer them in various sizes, and we continue to add and develop new sizes today. The first sizes that we launched about 4 or 5 years ago were a 3.5-inch round standard through a 6-inch round azalea pot. We're now getting into some work on some trade gallons, trade 2 gallons, trade 3 gallons, as well as some different inserts and such. So one that's kind of started to gain some traction is we have an 1801 sheet of pots in an EcoGrow formulation, and doing some work with that on whether or not those can be plopped right in the landscape. And the feedback coming back has been nothing but great so far. So that's the number one question I get, and our team gets, and our reps out in the field get asked is, how does it hold up? How do these containers last during the growing cycle? How do they do during a retail cycle? So we wanted to find out. Started trials. I did a lot of these trials myself, or I monitored them personally. And I think it's important to mention that all of these trials were conducted in actual production greenhouses during actual production cycles, and they weren't simulated, so to speak. So I really feel comfortable that these trials were not biased. You know, they were grown under normal, typical greenhouse cultural conditions. We wanted to see how the integrity of the pot held up over time. We wanted to see how it looked over time. We wanted to know how it handled. And then getting to the consumer level, we wanted to know how it degraded over time and how it did in the soil and how it did in a pot and all shift. So the first trial I did was I direct stuck unrooted zonal geranium cuttings directly into our 3.75-inch round EcoGrow container. Direct stick cuttings are typical practice among greenhouse growers. There's a lot of volume in direct stick, and this is the one area where I thought we could really tax the performance and integrity of the EcoGrow containers. 100% humidity. A mist house. It's just wet all the time. So this trial was initiated in week 5. Cuttings were direct stuck into the 3.75-inch container. It was a standalone propagation house, near 100% humidity, phytotronics mist controller, side by side with geraniums being rooted in 50 plug sheets or prop sheets. We pulled these plants from the mist at 7 to 14 days roughly. Moved them onto a finishing greenhouse, evaluated them on March 24th. The growth of the plants was pretty uniform and it was pretty vigorous. The roots were really, really good, pushed down to the bottom of the pot during that time frame. The one observation I did make was a little bit of mold. You know, we experienced a little bit of mold, which again, like I kind of compare to like saprophytic mold that we see on top of soil, because of the humidity and the moisture conditions. But it was primarily where the pot contacted the plastic tray, where there's a little bit of kind of a moisture pocket, and it dissipated over time. It just kind of went away. So I was pretty pleased with the performance of the containers, and I'm able to conclude that it was a appropriate application for our EcoGrow containers. Most of my growing has been in the upper Midwest, cold winters, no sunshine, days on end, no sunshine. Everybody's got a happy lamp to try to get out of seasonal depression. Rosemary was one of the most challenging crops that I had the pleasure of growing when I was a greenhouse grower, and a lot of my friends and customers up north, over the years, it's still one of their trouble crops as well. So week 5, we started with 50 count rooted rosemary liners, vegetative, and we planted them side by side with 4-inch square pints, mixed them right in with the crop the grower was growing for Mother's Day. March 24th, we saw really good plant growth, top growth, foliage, and we also saw some really good root development, very similar to what we saw in the plastic pots side by side. The one thing I noticed early on in this was the rosemary and EcoGrow pots seemed to kind of take off a little bit faster out of the shoots, but the plastic pots caught up to where they were indistinguishable. April 13th, the crop looked pretty good. This was a no-pinch crop, so it was just allowed to grow. May 13th, Mother's Day week, we had a saleable flat of plants. And again, this was a no-pinch crop. The root development was extensive. Now we wanted to see how long is it going to last. Now, this grower that I've worked closely with for over 20 years and have known, he's actually one of my best friends. He grows herbs and vegetables year-round. So we left these plants on the bench and pushed them all the way through as subsequent crops, and all the way till September 6th. September 6th, we had really healthy, overgrown rosemary plants, and the pots were they were just fine from an integrity standpoint. The one thing you'll notice with paper pulp products is they get a little discolored because it's moisture in paper, and it's something that I would expect you to see. They're not going to stay clean like a plastic pot. So the next thing we wanted to really take a careful look at is our EcoGrow organic containers, and primarily because our EcoGrow organic containers lack that little bit of fungicide to prevent mold growth on the containers. So we started with 72 count rooted liners on March 24th, and if you'll remember, this is about the same time that we kind of broke down the rooted cutting, the direct stick program. On April 13th, we had pretty good growth on the geraniums and really good root development. Coming up on Mother's Day week for a no-pinch zonal geranium crop, really good foliage, good blooming, real similar to the pots that we had as a control group that were grown in plastic. This too, we wanted to push through. How's the organic gonna hold up, from a longevity standpoint? So we pushed these plants to September 6th as well. Had some discoloration, maybe a little bit more of the spots on the pots, but we had some really overgrown, gnarly looking geraniums with some pretty significant root development at the end of the trial. But the key here is we had an EcoGrow pot that could still be picked up and handled and transported and all the normal things that you'd want to do with a plastic pot. So perennials are a big one. Perennials grow a little different. They grow a little bit cooler season. Perennial programs are very different from annuals, which I consider more of a faster crop, shorter cycle crop. This particular grower does a lot of spring, summer, and fall perennial liners, and he also does a lot of shifting of his perennials into larger containers for next season's sales. So what we did here is we started with our 4-inch EcoGrow containers, and we transplanted some 50 count heucheras and some Asclepias tuberosas into the 4-inch containers, and we just grew them on. The typical shift for this grower is, sometime in September. We took this trial from August 4th through September 6th, and as you can see in the photo of the Asclepias on September 6th, the growth was phenomenal. The root development was significant. And we shifted these plants, EcoGrow pot and all, into our trade 1 gallon containers to grow on the rest of the fall. I don't have pictures to show this, but these containers actually got overwintered in this gentleman's greenhouse, and they were brought back to life in the spring when it was time, and they were sold on to his customers. And they really truly blended right in with the shifts that he had done from a plastic pot, where he pulled the pot off and shifted it. Did not observe any more or any less loss due to them, compared to the ones growing from plastic pot shifts, just from the simple overwintering fact. So it really couldn't tell one way or another. So from my standpoint, I really kind of looked at this as a tremendous opportunity for yet another zero waste opportunity if it fits for someone's operation. So what about the plantability? Hey Bryce, can the EcoGrow pots be planted? My short answer is yes. This was the first work that we did to kind of gauge the plantability and the degradation rate of EcoGrow. It's pretty common practice for myself when I was a grower, a lot of growers that I've worked with over the years, primarily because of space restrictions, trying to turn crops fast, for component planters to be kind of created on the go, or shifting smaller pots into larger combination planters as they start shipping and greenhouse space opens up. It really becomes a space issue. Here we took those same plants that we direct stuck zonal geranium cuttings in, and we shifted them to a 13.5-inch planter on March 24th. We did 4 control groups. We did 3 control groups. We did a control group that had shifts from a plastic pot of the same size, 3 plants per pot. One of the groups had the entire EcoGrow container removed from the plant before it was transplanted, 3 plants per pot. And one group had the bottom of the EcoGrow container peeled off before it was planted in the decorative container. And then the group we're looking at here was the group that was planted pot and all, 3 plants per pot into the 13.5-inch planter. So 1 month, or not even 1 month after the transplant or the shift, we saw really good growth on all the groups. And what I was most impressed with, and the thing that I really wanted to track the most and was most nervous about, because if we find out this isn't a plantable product, it really changes the scope of what we're wanting to do with this product line. We had tremendous root development on April 13th, not even a month later. There were not only roots coming out over the top of the pot into the planter media, but they were busting through the drain holes in the bottom of the pot. We pushed this too all the way through to September 6th. We had some really overgrown, gnarly geranium planters at the end of the trial, but essentially the root development was very robust, very extensive. And the one thing I'll mention about EcoGrow, real similar to anybody that's worked with a cocoa fiber pot, you plant an EcoGrow pot in the soil or a cocoa pot in the soil, it's not going to till itself into the ground. There's still going to be a profile of that container in the media. But as you can see from the last picture, it disintegrated to nothing. So that kind of goes back to some of the findings from the garden trials. It's easily tillable and worked right into the garden soil. Here we've got a foliage grower that's got an aglaonema program, and they were curious about EcoGrow as a piece to their propagation part of the program. They wanted to eliminate a plastic propagation pot and have something they could just pop right into their finished container, and it's a timed crop again, and they wanted to see how the EcoGrow would perform. So these unrooted aglaonema cuttings were direct stuck into our 3.5-inch round EcoGrow. It was a 6-week liner program. And then at that time, at the end of 6 weeks, the aglaonemas were popped right into the finished container, which was like a trade 2-gallon or trade 3-gallon foliage can, and they were growing on it. At 4 weeks, we broke it down, we evaluated the crop, and there was extensive rooting at that point in root development, and the roots were pushing out the bottom of the pot, and the plants looked really good. So again, 3 plants per pot, and the rooting was pretty exceptional. I'm very encouraged by the trial work that we've done. I'm very encouraged with the results of the trial work that many growers that we work with have done. I'm very encouraged and very happy and excited about how EcoGrow is working for growers who have incorporated into being part of their product mix, whether it be one of the growers that went 100% full scale with it, and that's all they do is EcoGrow, or if it's the grower that's working EcoGrow into, as part of their organics program, which is part of their mix. We're getting really good results all around and good feedback all around.